In our modern world of covert surveillance, it might not seem the obvious choice for keeping tabs on your adversaries. A seemingly innocuous balloon, which had Americans pointing cameras and binoculars skyward, is, according to the Pentagon, being used by China to spy on them. It was detected 60,000 feet up in US airspace near a base in Montana, which houses nuclear missiles. Officials in Beijing didn't deny it was theirs, but did have an alternative explanation. It's a weather balloon which has blown off course, they said. Likely story, came Washington's reply. Whatever the truth, it's heightened pre-existing tensions between the superpowers and prompted the postponement of a highly anticipated visit to China by America's top diplomat, who tonight called it a clear violation of US sovereignty.
Are you worried about the balloon? Are you?
The president refused to answer any questions as he left the White House a short time ago. But he has a decision to make. Does he order the US Air Force to shoot down the balloon, or even request an attempt to capture it? The huge spy balloon, the size of 3 buses, remains over the United States and is drifting southeastwards. A bizarre development in an increasingly tense relationship between Washington and Beijing. The US Secretary of State has now cancelled his imminent trip to China, saying the incident has cast a further shadow over relations.
The presence of this surveillance balloon in US airspace is a clear violation of US sovereignty and international law, that it's an irresponsible act, and that the PRC's decision to take this action on the eve of my planned visit is detrimental to the substantive discussions that we were prepared to have.
That's the moon. Well, what the heck is that?
For residents in the state of Montana, it was clearly visible.
What planet is that?
And puzzling.
This thing is up in the sky, and I have no idea what it is.
China is insisting it is a weather balloon that it's lost control of. But the context is growing rivalry between Washington and Beijing. Earlier this week, the US Defense Secretary was in the Philippines, announcing a cluster of new military bases designed to contain China in the region and deter an attack on Taiwan. The Chinese balloon was initially identified and tracked over Alaska's Aleutian Islands. Highly unusually, it then took a route over the continental US, including Montana and the Malmstrom Air Force Base, where intercontinental nuclear missiles are located. It was then spotted from the city of Billings and is currently believed to be over Missouri. There have been previous high-stakes espionage encounters. In 2001, a US spy plane collided with a Chinese fighter jet and was forced to land at a nearby airbase. The crew was detained by China for 10 days. The political reaction to the incursion of the balloon has been sharp, particularly here on Capitol Hill. Some Republicans expressing outrage and saying it shows the weakness of the White House in its dealings with Beijing. But experts say that spying with aerial platforms is performed by almost all nations, with the US leading the way through its preeminence in the world of drone and satellite intelligence gathering.
Imagery intelligence, pigeons, balloons, aircraft, drones, satellites. The whole atmosphere above us is used for countries, for intelligence agencies to try to see what other people are up to. This is just the game of intelligence and espionage.
Many expected the White House to be tested over its China policy, but few anticipated the trigger would be the path of a spy balloon. Robert Moore, News at 10, Washington.
And our Asia correspondent, Debbie, now joins us from Beijing. I mean, Debbie, Robert said there a kind of bizarre development in an increasingly tense relationship. I mean, I guess it's true that relations are difficult enough without a whopping great balloon in the mix.
Well, Tom, in many ways, this whole episode encapsulates current relations between the US and China and the level of mistrust and suspicion between the two sides. The Chinese government will be appalled that Secretary Blinken has stood President Xi up and suspended his visit, despite them providing what they believe is an innocent explanation. Just think how much China has changed in the 6 years since the last Secretary of State visited the country, how much the economy has grown, how much the military has grown. It now has the largest navy in the world. We have endured 3 years of a pandemic, and it was on this day last year that Presidents Xi and Putin met here in Beijing and declared that no-limits friendship just days before Russian tanks rolled across the border into Ukraine. This week, 2 top US officials have forecast there will be conflict around Taiwan within the next 4 years, a prediction that has angered Beijing. And now you have that whopping great balloon in that antagonizing mix, and talks that were supposed to put guardrails between the world's 2 superpowers have been unceremoniously cancelled.
OK, Debbie, for now, thank you very much indeed.